Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. Sylvie, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today on our podcast. Before we dive into the topic of joy, can you tell us more about your background and your incredible career at the TD Bank?
I think I need to start by I was born in Quebec City. I lived in the Eastern Townships. I lived in Montreal and I lived in Toronto. So I think it's important to understand my background and my career. Career-wise, listen, it's going to be almost 39 years that I joined TD. Back then, they hired very, very young, I have to say. And I've started my career in an environment that was mostly man, 40 years old, white man. And so I started in commercial banking and then moved up the rank in every businesses. So I've worked in every businesses of TD Bank to today, where after 39 years, I'm leading the Quebec region. I'm the president of the Quebec Market for TD Bank with 6,000 employees in Quebec.
Congratulations.
Ah, thank you.
It
doesn't happen by yourself. You have a big team working with you.
I can imagine. And in your journey at the TD Bank, what have been some of the most memorable moments that have impacted your life and your joy?
Well, it wasn't always joy. I can tell you that because obviously at a younger age, you're in a very competitive environment. I was one of the first female in commercial banking, one of the first female in TD Security. So I had to really prove myself. So joy was not necessarily always there. It was more of a fighting and making your place and showing what you can do. Whereas as you move up, but also as you age, you get wiser and you decide which battle you're going to take. And I think that's when you're getting to a level of joy because now you really take the time to celebrate what you've accomplished, but also put everything in context. And not everything is so important, you know. And I think as you move up, but more importantly, as you age and you live different experience, you meet different people. That's when you get to a different level in terms of your state of mind, how you approach things.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. First of all, let's focus on where you were in your early days, as you've described, in a male-dominated environment with very few young women.
Yeah.
Did you ever envision yourself to be with a bank for such a long time? And if that was not the case, what shifted your view that this is really the company I want to continue thriving in, growing in, and having a positive impact in?
Now, that's a very interesting question. So I have to tell you, when I joined TD, I looked at people that were 10 years with the company. And in my mind, I was like, are you kidding me? Never. I'll never be 10 years in the same company. And then you start your career. And I didn't envision that I would get to the level I am today. Like I was ambitious, properly ambitious, but I didn't envision I could get to this level. But I think what really made the difference is that as I moved up and the company I work for as the values that really aligns to mine. And this is the values of caring about people, diversity and inclusion, impact in the community. So that spoke to me a lot. And I realized that with this company and what I wanted to accomplish for myself, not only in terms of career, but impact in the community, it was pretty well aligned. Not always perfect, but pretty well aligned. And I think that's what people should look for, really looking at what are the values of the company you work with, and is that match yours? But in a career, even if you're ambitious, it's a matter of being at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, having people that will develop you, that will challenge you, that will help you grow And it's not always easy to listen to sometimes people telling you, well, there's opportunities there. But if you do that, you move up in that. But it's not just about intellectuals, it's not just about performance, it's also the ecosystem and the environment you work with. At TD, if you're extremely ambitious and you're elbow playing, you're not going to win at TD because it's a culture of collaboration. It's a culture of let's all work together to make bigger things. Long answer, sorry. That's perfect.
Tell us about your decision to become a parent. You have two beautiful boys. How did that decision come about? Because it's very challenging as you're a young executive, a female in a male dominated environment, and the competition is high, the struggle is high. Tell us how you made that decision, and were you afraid that it could potentially compromise certain opportunities for you down the road?
So I always knew that I wanted kids. Like I always knew that I wanted kids. I had to find the right partner at the time. And then when you have a career, not easy sometimes to find the right partner. So in my case, and this is the model that I picked, but there's no perfect model. To me, I waited a little longer to have my kids first to find the right man for that. But as well, I decided to put some basis to my career, and then I was at a certain level. For sure, I was afraid. I was afraid because you're putting yourself off the racetrack for a little bit of time. And even to a certain degree, back then, I would say it's probably different today, but back then, as you were getting 30 years old, some corporations were saying, well, it's about the age she's going to get kids, so does she get the next promotion? And so that's something that you can control. So you have to really focus on what do I control? And I always controlled on, I'm there. I was telling my employer, I'm there, I'm that. And one day I said, I'm thinking about having kids. And I was transparent, which I don't know if it was a good idea. Lucky enough, I got pregnant very quickly. But what if it was 2 years? Would I have been put on? And but my way was to be transparent and say, I'm thinking about having kids. So I had my two sons at 35 and 33 years old. And for me, I look back and I say it was for me the perfect age because I was more stable, both in my life, and financially, my career. And when I had my kids, it was great, but you need to balance. And the famous question around life balance, I would say to me, I had a perfect balance, but my balance might be totally unbalanced to somebody else. But it has to be for you. You don't read that in a book. There's no such thing as equal. For me, it was the right balance with my kids to be not so much in terms of frequency, but in terms of quality time. And I had the right partner for that as well. So we managed that together and we were able to have a good balance with the kids. And I've had quite an interesting career, and I'm not bragging, but just saying I have quite an interesting career. My two kids are not serial killers. They're really good boys. They have a great career today, and they're doing very well. I think you have to put the guilt behind and say, okay, what do I really control? And that's the way to look at it.
And how has becoming a mother at that point in time shifted how you were as a leader? I know in my personal experience, there was a shift. I became more patient because
Absolutely.
patience is absolutely something you need with babies. Many, many dimensions, if you wish, from my perspective, shifted. And there was a softer Andrea that emerged after I became a mother that was transposed in my leadership roles. Tell me about your journey on that.
I would say definitely more patience and realize that, when you have a career, um, for me, my background is finance, but really I'm a mathematician. I'm a data-driven person. I'm really into, stuff and really putting the right discipline, the structure in place and all of that. Well, with a kid, a baby, newborn, they haven't read the book that you read. So not everything goes by the book. And to me was more patience, but also agility, becoming more agile and being ready to, whoops, it's not going as expected, you know. Whereas in your career, you can control a lot of stuff, and being structured and disciplined as I am, you know, I'm used to operating within some parameters. But with the kids, not everything goes like that. So definitely, and more patience and taking more time to look at stuff, and not everything needs to be immediate. And with kids, you know, I look at my two sons who are men today at 28 and 25 years old, but I look at them and I'm saying, okay, at 16 years old, I didn't think they were listening because they rolled their eyes and they thought you were, I don't know what, because they didn't agree with you. But today they're telling you stuff and says, well, actually, they were listening, but obviously they didn't show at that time.
We spoke about mindset, the importance of having positive mindset, and I'm sure you've had many, many challenges throughout your career. Are there specific practices that you have maintained to elevate your resilience and find joy?
It's interesting because somebody was once asking me, you know, what has been the differentiator? What has been your edge to get to this role? And as I said, it's not about performance scorecard and stuff like that, but it's how you can collaborate, how you operate within the team, or how you negotiate during crisis. And my edge has always been, you know, I'm able to bring some humor to this discussions. And obviously, you need to pick the right time. But to me, it was always creating an environment where people felt safe. And now you can just sometimes just a little joke and bring things down to the right place. So really putting things in context and say, okay, is this life-threatening issue, or is it something that, you know, yes, it's an issue we need to address, but how will you address? But bringing some humor and, you know, just making people realize that, okay, listen, this is not like I'm not dying tomorrow if I make the wrong decision. And you don't want to make a wrong decision anytime in your life, but I think the joy today is that it's not about a scorecard. It's about what impact did you have, you know, around the people you work with? What impact did you have with the community who you work with? What impact did you have in your family and friends? And I think growing up with this, and it doesn't happen when you're young, but as you're aging and maturing, you know, to me, it's been okay, let's balance stuff and make sure that, you know, the decisions are not always like, this is black and white and I need to take this decision. So,
And talking about impact, I know you've been extensively involved in many philanthropic circles. You've been on the board of directors of so many philanthropic organizations as well. Tell us more about how you actually chose those specific causes and why they really were important for you.
well, like everybody else, you know, picking organizations you're going to spend time with when you don't have a lot of time, you want to add value. But I always tell people don't join a board of director of a nonprofit organization if you don't believe in the mission of this. Don't take that just for your resume. So for me, I had a father that did l'École des Beaux-Arts. So for me, being involved with the Museum of Fine Arts just made sense because I grew up like that. When my friends were going to the zoo, I was going to museums. So for me, it made a lot of sense. And I always said arts in all its forms. So not only the museums, but also music and all of that helps bring people together and help it. So for me, it was right there. You know, in terms of health, I've been involved with hospitals and more so into the cancer society and all of that because my mother passed when I was 5 years old from cancer. So it should be something that really you should be committed when you joined, but also looking at how do I add value? If I don't feel that I'm going to add value, I'm not going to join a board of a public company or a, you know, you really want to make sure that the limited time you have, because everybody's very busy and busy, not only business, but busy in their lives. You need to really feel that you really had value. And that's the joy that you're going to get because you see that you're helping out. So philanthropy is at a different degree for that.
You mentioned about the impact about your father, your mother, and that has impacted the choices of your philanthropic activities today. Let's now go back to the younger version of Sylvie and share with us what brought you the most joy at that time. even before becoming an executive, before becoming a mother. How do you see joy today? Has there been a shift and an evolution through the years?
Yes, big time. I think when you're younger, joy is something measurable. I won this. I achieved this. I got this. And versus today, the joy is more around the kindness around me. For me, the collaboration, that brings me joy. Giving forward, if you get involved to these nonprofit organization in philanthropy, that should be about that, giving to the, if you're lucky enough, you had a nice career, or you're lucky enough because you're at a certain level of financial ease, you should give back. And not only money, give time or help out somebody in your family. It doesn't need to be something that is everybody sees, but as you mature, as you advance in your life, I wouldn't say age, but as you advance in your life, those are things that are more, it's no longer about winning, getting, it's more about the impact. I know I refer to impact often, but really, creating an environment that is safe, that is pleasant, that is caring for everybody.
And do you find joy is easier to tap into today than it was when you were younger?
I think joy is a lot about a state of mind. Some people will never find joy, and they could be in the most perfect environment and they are not satisfied. Sometimes I tell people, how many steaks do you want in your plate? Like, how many can you eat at the same time? So I think it's a state of mind. It's more like celebrating the little things. Waking up in the morning, having a nice coffee on a weekend by the lake, to me, it's a pure joy. It's not a big thing, just like taking my coffee, relaxing, the nature, and all of that. And I think it's more a state of mind and taking the time to. And I believe at a younger age, you don't necessarily take the time to do that. It's always about more, more, more versus maybe less, but the quality is better.
So, for someone that may be struggling to find joy for personal reasons or professional reasons, what insights could you share that could potentially help elevate their joy and shift their perspectives on maybe their lives and how they see things?
Well, so I'm not a psychologist, but I would say sometimes step back, make a pause, step back, look at things, and really weight things. Okay, is this really that important, or is this really making a difference? Or I think it's about taking the time to appreciate and celebrate. I love celebrating. I love taking the time to celebrate little success or celebrating milestones or celebrating something happening in your family or with your friends, taking the times to send a note to a friend, just say, I'm thinking of you, nothing more. My new partner, well, new 9 years, we text each other during the day and just say, PAT, pense à toi. So I'm thinking of you, nothing more. But this is little joy, telling somebody else, you're important enough that I take the time to. And so I would say my advice would be take the time to pause sometimes and really weight things and say, this, what is really important here? And going forward, what do you want? Or maybe as you age, it comes more naturally, but saying, what's the heritage I want to leave behind? Will people remember a scorecard 20 years from now? No. Will people remember like so much money or so much this? No. But they'll remember the time you spent with them or the celebration you had with them or the help that you've provided and stuff like that, I think. And that's creating joy. That's creating fulfillment. That's a
As you're talking about the impact that we can have, who has had a major impact on you to help you advance your career through your lifetime? Has there been a specific person that has really mentored you and supported you tremendously?
I've been very fortunate. I had fabulous, fabulous mentors in my career. But even before my career, coming from my background, I was not even sure to go to university. But at that time, phenomenal man, a career man, he believed in me. And he says, why aren't you going to university? And I says, well, I don't know. It takes money and takes time. And he says, no, 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 you're smart enough. You should do that. And he even helped me fill the forms for student loans. Okay. So to me, this person is the stepping stone to get to where I am today because he really believed in me more than I did about myself back then. So that would be the first mentor, I would say. And this person didn't know he had so much impact in me. And unfortunately, I waited too long because unfortunately, he passed 10 years ago. And when he passed, I wrote to his wife to say, I just want to tell you how much impact Dr. Terrien had on me. You know, he really made a huge difference in my life. And in my career, I've had people that believed in me, that supported me, and some were sponsors, some were mentors. So mentors, they were a little tougher on me, but the best one were tougher on me because I knew they care. So it wasn't being tough and saying, you need to improve this, you need to do this and that, but more saying, you know, I have your success at heart. I think you can do it, but you need to change this or work on that or, you know, tweak this. And they really, really been helpful to me. Joy and caring and all of that is all around that. If somebody believes in you and you know that they care, it's not as threatening to take that if somebody is like, oh, they don't really believe in me and everything is wrong. So you get on the defensive. And for me, one of the things you were referring to earlier is when you're younger, sometimes you take everything like, and you're competitive and you're on the defensive. And as you evolve, you just say, okay, nobody's really mean. And I believe that. I am sure a lot of people won't agree with me, but the way I look at things is that people don't wake up in the morning and decide to be mean. So sometimes people are more abrupt, sometimes people are more like competitive, but try to understand where are they coming from and talk to them and take what you have to take from them. And sometimes instead of confronting, ask more questions. I ask often, if I don't agree on something, I don't tell people that I don't agree. I usually use the word, help me understand. Where are you coming from? What are we trying to accomplish? What's the success here? What are we trying to achieve? Versus saying, I don't agree with you and I don't agree that, you know, I should do this differently or that. And then you get into a conversation and understand because sometimes the agenda of the two person are not the same.
So talking about the agenda, I know one of the elements that is your key strength that we spoke about earlier was your capacity to negotiate. So tell us a little bit more how your strengths in negotiation has been a key factor in addition to the other elements that you've shared earlier in growing your career.
So negotiating is not only negotiating a contract. Every day you're negotiating, you talk with somebody, you look at some reports, you talk with different departments. You are negotiating. So negotiating is not about a win and a lose. Negotiating is that you're influencing what's going on in your environment. You're influencing what goes around. So to me, I always tell people, when you're sitting with me, you're always in an interview. And it's not to add pressure, but you look at how people react, how people present themselves, how people bring themselves to the job. And to me, it's about negotiating. So that's important to understand. Negotiating is not only negotiating contract. So for me, it's more understanding. One thing that is really important in business, and I've been asked this question often, is that, are you political? And I surprise people when I say I am political because people think that political means being Machiavellic. Political is not being Machiavellic. Political is understanding on what basis the decisions are taken in your organization. Who are the people that have the authority to take decision? Who are, most importantly, not those that take the decision, but who are the influencers? The positive influencers, the negative influencers. So understanding the unwritten rule, that's important. So if you want to have a career, don't say, I'm not political. Because political to me is being wise, is understanding the context in which the environment in which you operate. It's not being Machiavellic and maneuvering and doing bad thing and backstabbing. And so negotiating is that, understanding who is in front of you and what's their agenda and how can we win together. And for me, that's extremely important. I never present myself in a boardroom not understanding who is sitting around this table. What are the decisions? Where do I absolutely need to make a point? Which battles I don't need to win? Nice to win, but I don't need to win. And that's how, negotiating. And then people, you're not as threatening. So people don't come at a defensive when they come sitting in front of you. But it's about respect, mutual respect. And for me, it's about a win-win as much as you can. And sometimes it's not possible. And how do you make that happen? And how do you bring some humor and talk about, okay, what are we actually trying to accomplish versus this and this and this? I often ask the question, What's the measure of success here? Is that only a goal in terms of numbers? Is that something else? Because if I'm negotiating on a goal with numbers and somebody's negotiating on the impact in the community and somebody is negotiating, we'll never agree. I think the strength of my negotiation is understanding the people and not becoming threatening in a negotiation.
So, Sylvie, after so many years with a TD Bank, I know you were planning your retirement soon. How did that decision come about? And tell us what you're excited about moving forward.
And when I'm going to be retiring, it's going to be almost 39 years that I joined TD. I've had a great career. I've worked for a great organization. I had fun, not always easy, but I had fun. I have a great sense of fulfillment. Like to me, I'm happy of the heritage that I'm leaving. Great succession, great people behind me, and don't even have a doubt that the bank will continue to grow and continue to do well. But it's time. It's time for me to find joy somewhere else. And retirement for me is not about you know, and going in an island by myself. Obviously, I'm still going to be involved in the community. I'm still going to be involved in nonprofit organization. I'm going to be on board, so still in the business community. But take more time for me, for my family, with my friends. A joy in traveling. To me, traveling is going in different countries, learning the different culture, tasting different food, meeting different people. For me, that's a big, big joy. Loving to go to different countries and really live there as a local. So rent a villa for a few months in Morocco or in Vietnam and living the life of these people, understanding. And we've done it a lot, my partner and I. And as you do that, it also brings joy to say, wow, we're lucky in North America. We're really lucky for the life we have, for the political environment, for the financial situation of the country. And that gives you joy to see, wow, we're lucky to have that and appreciate that. But it also sometimes forces you to see not everybody has it as easy as you have. So what are you doing about it? So spending time with my kids, my partner's kids, grandchildren's, and just celebrating life.
How could we bring more joy into organizations and to this world? Do you have any specific insights or perspectives on how we can create a more kinder world?
That's a great question. We need the magic wand here. I would say for corporations is to really understand what should be the culture and the vision and the values that you carry in your organization. And most of the organizations want to be profitable, but there's a way to do it, not at any price, not at the detriment of too many things. So the values that you will put in place as an organization will have an impact how people behave. If it's all about results and scorecard at any price, then you'll have people that will get to these results at any price to the detriment of your client, to the detriment of your colleagues. But if the values are for us, getting to these results in the most ethical way is what you celebrate as success. You're sending the right signal. But I think as well, spending time with your HR department and your leaders to understand how do we create this caring environment? And caring doesn't mean everybody happy, being happy camper, not performing. It means how do we create this environment where people really care? So, I care about you, so I'll develop you. I'll challenge you. I'll help you grow. And once you succeed, I'll help you move to the next role, not trying to keep you in my team because you make me look good. So how do you create this richness of caring, real care? Because sometimes you see firms that are saying, well, we have a caring performance, but it's more we care if you perform. And so how do you bring that all together? And obviously in a spirit that, we have a mission to accomplish here, but that caring and helping people celebrate little success. And that's as much the corporation as the leaders and the peers. What type of environment do we spend time together other than just in a work environment? For me, it's always been, I love to go for a drink or go for a nice lunch or dinners with the colleagues of a team or with my executive teams or stuff like that. You get to learn who's really the person versus who's the leader itself, and understand their environment and understand their personal context. And that tells you a lot about how they present themselves at work. So I would say there's no magic one, but it's more if the organization, really has that at heart, it will help bringing joy because the celebration won't be just about a pure result. It's more about the how than the what at the end. And outside the organization, being involved. You hear a lot of people, not being happy about this and that and complaining. Get involved. You want to change things? Get involved. Make the first step to change things.
So, talking about change, I'm curious to know if you would look back on your life, would there be anything that you would like to change if you could?
Oh, that's a tough question. For sure. For sure, I would do things differently. I would love to have to be more wise younger and be able to really put things in context and say, how do you get that? I think not everything needs to be so tough and so difficult and battles. Like, how do you pick the battles and how do you learn to understand the context and say, this is not that important and make the decisions on weighting up what's really important here. That's basically what I would change. But otherwise, surrounding yourself by good friends, family that really, really cares about you, colleagues. Some colleagues, you decide to just distance yourself because they're negative, and that's okay. You can do that. You know, family is tougher. Friends, it's easier. I would say maybe sometimes I've had people in my life that were very negative and I waited too long to remove myself, not push them, remove myself from a situation like that. People say, well, you're always laughing, you have fun, you have those, pink rose glasses. But when you surround yourself with the right people, it's easier.
Final question, if you had any superpower that you could have, what would that be and why?
Bring more kindness in the world. Just pure kindness, not I'll do this because it looks good or not do this because it's going to be rewarded or it's going to be well viewed. If I was able to, like, a superpower would be more kindness. More kindness, you wouldn't have the wars. More kindness, you'd have a better balance between the different countries that we operate and the wealth of the countries and stuff like that. I think more kindness would go a long, long way. That's not an easy wish, but I think it starts one person at a time.
Absolutely. And towards creating a more joyful world.
Absolutely. Joy is the basis of, having a long life, I believe. It's just finding joy in everything you do.
Great. Sylvie, it's been such an immense pleasure to have you with
My
us
pleasure.
today. Thank you for your time and enjoy your retirement. Have a blast and everything you've shared. I wish you all the best and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you so much, Andrea.